Pastor Amy. Now, Pastor Amy's kind of like, she's kind of like the mother in the place today. And you know how your mama is. She'll get on to you and everything, but then she'll just love you right on back in. And Pastor Amy, she can kind of get us, but then when we leave, she's loving on us. And so she's got a word from the Lord this morning that just as Pastor Christina brought what God told her to do, Pastor Amy's going to bring, and this is what we want, what God told her to do. So stand to your feet. Come on, let's give a big North Georgia Ignited Women's Conference welcome to Pastor Amy Lyle, Church of Winder. Come on, Pastor Amy.
Thank you. Y'all can be seated. Oh, I love y'all. What a great looking group of women. It's just like a sea of women. It's beautiful. It's just absolutely beautiful. And what an amazing word we've already heard this morning. Thank you for that. Thank you for being vulnerable. I know how hard that is to just come and not just bring content, but to bear your heart. And I know so many women were helped. And the word last night, oh my goodness, we're just going to go home so filled. And this is what I love about ladies' conferences, is that, I used to go and I would think of like session by session by session. And then the Lord showed me, no, it's like I bring every song and every word and every moment, and it's like I put it in this like divine casserole dish, that it all gets in there together and it kind of marinates together. And then the Lord says he puts it in the oven to bake it just for you. And you get to go home with all of it. I know some of y'all know my story. I've had some amazing things happen just in the last couple of weeks. And I'm not talking about that today, but another time. But I will say, I want you to know that the deposit that was made for the moment that happened a couple of weeks ago happened right there in that pool. On the last Sunday of 2018, I came up here with some friends and we were baptized. And the Lord showed me a couple of weeks ago as I was receiving this amazing prophetic word about my healing and about what God is doing in my life, that the deposit was made 4 years ago in that pool. And so I want to encourage you. Some of you have been baptized before. Some of you will get baptized tonight. If I go to the bank and I make a deposit, I don't immediately have access to those funds. They're mine. I've put them in, but I don't have immediate access, but I will have access. And that's what happens when you come and you obey and you get in the waters and you get baptized. There's this deposit that's made. And then in the right moment when you need it, God brings it forward, and you not only have it, you have access to use it. Okay, so that's the word for someone. I don't want anyone to ever leave here discouraged thinking, well, I didn't get what I came for. You may have gotten more than what you came for, and you just don't know it yet. Because God just likes to surprise us. Okay, if you have your Bibles, you can turn to Daniel. And I want you to know, I was studying the life of Daniel, the book of Daniel, and the Lord really began to show me why, and why it's so relevant to our lives and the world that we're living in. All scripture, it's not about us, it's to us. But there is application. And the first thing that I heard about this weekend is that it is a weekend of decision. And you will say yes or you won't this weekend. And I tremble when I say it. I want you to know I have been in my prayer closet before the Lord. And like PK said last night, I'm on assignment, and I know what my assignment is. There is a line of demarcation that has been drawn, and we're going to choose this weekend which side of that line we're on. It is right to it. There is no more delay. It is not a time of delay. It is a time of decision. So we all know about Daniel. And of course, if you grew up, like me in church, probably one of the first things you heard about Daniel was him in the lion's den. And I remember when I was young, I used to picture him young, and then I realized he was not young when he went into the lion's den. He was in his 80s. And a lot had transpired before that moment. And we see towards the end of Daniel that Daniel, he had some amazing things. He's saved from a den of lions. He receives angelic visitation. He's a man of prayer. He has dreams and visions and interpretation of dreams. Like, who wants some of that? I do. I hope you do. And so what I heard the Lord say is that is great. And if you're going to experience some of what Daniel experienced, you're going to have to do some of what Daniel did. Okay, so what did Daniel do? So we learn in chapter 1, I'm going to teach just a little bit. That's not really my gifting, but I'm going to try. But we learn in chapter 1 that the king of Babylon, who is King Nebuchadnezzar, I know you've all heard about King Nebuchadnezzar, he besieges Judah, which we know is the southern kingdom. And this is the beginning of the Babylonian captivity. So King Nebuchadnezzar is the first king to capture Judah. And the scriptures tells us the Lord allowed him to do that. And that's a whole other lesson. Like God gives warning after warning after warning. They were not heeded, and so they are taken into captivity. And because of that, chapter 1, verse 3 tells us that Nebuchadnezzar decides that he wants to take some youths, teenagers who are from the royal family, handsome, without blemish, skillful, wise, and full of knowledge. Can you see what Babylon values? And does it sound familiar at all? So Daniel, and we learned that the 3 Hebrew children, they're in that group. And they are taken. And we can breeze right over that. I want you to feel this with me for a second. That these are teenage boys. Parents aren't talked about. There's some heartbroken parents in this chapter. And Daniel and these teenagers, they're called, they're taken. And they have to be taken away from everything they know, everything that's familiar. Their family, their friends. You talk about loss. And, we've even seen this happen sometimes when, our kids, some of your kids, the kids out there, they go to universities and all of a sudden they don't remember who they are because they're being indoctrinated in a system that doesn't reflect what we taught them. Okay, you've seen this happen. So this is what's happening. But even worse, because they're not getting weekend visits. And they're not getting the Sunday church service. You understand? Like some of us, big people, we don't know who we are if we missed a couple of weeks in church. And I'm not saying we should miss church. We shouldn't. But they weren't coming every Sunday night to get their fix and remember who they are. No, they're taken out. And so the only thing that can be taken with them is what's already in their hearts. And we're going to see a lot were taken, and only 4 are we told about that remembered who they were in a culture that had nothing in common with where they came from. So are you picturing this with me? That all of a sudden, it's just one day this happens. They're taken, they're completely put in a completely different place. And what are they going to do? They have a decision to make. They're at a place of decision. So they're separated and they're taken to Babylon. Y'all, Babylon was all about me. That was the culture. That was the culture. In fact, you can look at it later. Isaiah 47 is written all about Babylon. And at some point, Babylon says about itself, I am and there is none beside me. That tells you what kind of culture and what kind of mindset is in this place, that all of a sudden all these children who've been raised by Jewish parents and Jewish customs to worship one who says, I am, and there's none beside me. And now they're thrust into an environment that tells them to make it all about them. Very quickly, remember the Tower of Babel, when they all came together to make a name for themselves? Right here. That's right there in Babylon. Remember when God told Abraham to leave Ur of the Chaldees and go out to a land that he would show him? You know where he led him from? Ur of the Chaldees, right there in the middle of a Babylonian empire. Can you see the enemy is wanting to take these youths right back from where they were delivered from? Does that sound familiar? And so we have a decision, and they have a decision. They seek to erase these youths' past. They change their names. And they tell them, you're going to be educated in all things Babylon for 3 years. The languages, their gods, their mindset is being poured in to teenagers. I want you to get this picture, because we're going to see why we admire these 4 men and why we want to emulate what they did. So the very first thing that they're offered is the king's delicacies. They are told, here is the king's table, here's his spread, and you can eat what the king eats. You can drink what the king drinks. You have all access to all things yummy in Babylon. And they decide, no, we don't want to be defiled by the king's meat. That's their first denial of their self. We don't want to be defiled by this. So they say, no, we're only going to eat veggies and drink water. You know, to us girls, I mean, come on. We can do that. You know, we're women. I could give up meat. I really could. I don't like to give up bread, but I could give up meat. My family laughs at me because if you ever go to dinner with me and I'm just eating the way I want to, the meat is the last thing I touch. Isn't that true? Okay, girls, these were teenage boys. Okay, so this is a very different sacrifice to them. It would have been serious. I mean, have you raised boys? Because I have. I've raised one, and I love him dearly. Well, about a month ago, I had the opportunity to go up to Tennessee, and I forget what was going on, but Jeff could not go. There was something that was pressing, and he could not go. So I decided to call my son. And I was like, hey, would you want to go with your mama to Pigeon Forge for 3 or 4 days? And he said, sure. And so me and him, we took off. And we had the best time just on this mom-son weekend. But we both got to choose like different restaurants. Well, on his night, ladies, he chose the Brazilian steakhouse. Oh, yeah. If you've ever been, you know what I'm about to talk about. So you go in a Brazilian steakhouse and you flip your card to green. And when you flip your card to green, they bring you all the meat you could ever possibly want. Okay, this is what is being offered here, by the way. Okay, so we're at this restaurant. We have not even got our water, and Landon's like, kapow, green. Like, bring the meat. And I'm like, okay, I would like a roll. I'm like at the salad bar. You know, I'm having salad and fruit. I haven't even thought about meat. I come back to the table. I'm like, wow, that's a lot of meat across the table. He doesn't even see me. He's just meat. And so I go back to the salad bar I wanted a different kind of salad. I finally get back to the table, turn my card to green. Now both of our cards are green. He's asking if I want some on my plate because he'll eat it if I don't. And this goes on for quite a while till we're both like, you know what I'm talking about, like, whew, like I need to breathe out for a second. We're both slowing down. You know how it is, like you're gonna get your money's worth. You know, these places are expensive. They're expensive. So with the price comes dessert and coffee. So they're like, do you want dessert and coffee? I'm like, oh, yes, I do. And Landon's like, I'm too full. I'm like, okay. They bring my dessert and coffee, and I'm, taking my time because I like to dine. I don't like to eat. I like to dine. And so I'm slowly, and he is looking at my dessert, and I'm like, well, he may want to buy it, and I'm kind of scooting it over, but he's not really saying anything. And he's watching me, and he goes, I think I could eat one more chicken leg. I said, baby, just split that card back over. And he did, and here they came with more than chicken legs. And about an hour later, I'm finished with my dessert and I'm finished with my coffee, and he finally finishes his last chicken leg, and we go home. Because that's what boys are like. Do you understand? They still would have even been growing. You don't put teenagers on a diet. You don't put teenage boys on a diet. They did this, and of course, you know that the Lord blessed them. They had better countenances than all the rest, but this was sacrifice. This was sacrifice early on. And I just want to tell you, Babylon was all about what they could acquire, what they could enjoy, and we so can see that in that culture. But what about us? What about when that third commercial comes on and it says, if you'll spend $200 on this cream. I know, it hurt my feelings too when he gave this to me. You can be tan, thin, and young. Like, I don't know how one cream can do that, but apparently it can. Apparently it can. So we buy it. And when you think about if we're in Babylon or not, why don't you just start paying attention to every billboard, every commercial that is offered? What did Babylon talk about? Beauty and youth and success. That's what he wanted in his Babylonian kingdom. And ladies, if we are not careful, we will chase this Babylonian mindset. We will be right in the midst of it and not even know it. Because go look, I did too. Go look at your bank account and tell me how much money is spent on youth and beauty and image. That's where it tells us. I know, it hurt my feelings too. But I want to tell you, this is what is pushed on us in our society. And it's not just arbitrary. There is a mindset behind that. There is an agenda. And a lot of it is money, because some of these things we know will never work. Now, y'all know I want to be cute. I want y'all to be cute. I'm not against cute. Like, that's not what I'm saying. But what are we chasing? And where is our heart? Because let me tell you this. I just read this study. This is not even a Christian study. This is a psychological study. It was done and came up with this conclusion, that while seeing someone else with something bigger and better than what we possessed can produce feelings of envy, jealous, and dissatisfaction, that can happen, the study found that those people acquiring what was bigger and better did not create any extra feelings of happiness. So do you see the hamster wheel that we're on? They have sold us a bag of lies, because Babylon lies to us. It lies to us. And then, so not are we only in captive to this hamster wheel of chasing things that actually aren't going to produce any happiness in us, then they tell us, you know what? You don't have to worry about it if you can't afford it. You can charge it. We'll let you charge, and you can still get this cream that's going to make you skinny and thin and tan by tomorrow. And then 3 weeks later, you realize that it did not work, and now you're in bondage to the debt, paying on the stuff that didn't work. Can you see this? And you know what? What was so bad, and it would have been terrible for them to be taken into captivity, taken into that mindset. Ladies, we were born in it. We haven't been taken away. We were born into it. And I'm telling you, if you and I are not fighting this, we are going right along with the flow. It takes a decision to say, no, I will not live like that. Because you know what the most dangerous captivity is? Friendly captivity. Because we don't even feel captive. Because they're wanting to help us. They want us to be thin and beautiful and tan and rich. They want that for us. That sounds like my friend. So I don't even know. It's friendly captivity. And we are in this culture. And again, we don't even see it. I don't even see it. I'm putting myself in there because, you know, what was that slogan? You can have it your way. Well, like, since when? Since when did it all go did it go your way? It has not gone my way. If y'all have the secret, tell me, please. Okay, if you want to know if we're in a me culture, let me just read to you, because I had to write it down, this latest Starbucks order I heard. And yes, I love Starbucks. This isn't about Starbucks, I'm just saying. This person said, I I'd like a grande caramel macchiato, a third whole milk, a third almond milk, a third soy milk, double the amount of vanilla syrup, triple the amount of caramel syrup, no caramel drizzle on top, upside down, I don't even know what that means, whipped cream, round lid, 1 shot extra espresso, cinnamon sprinkle on top, and hold the cup. What? Hold the cup? I don't even know what that means. I don't even know what that means. But my point is that we have grown up in a culture that we think this is normal. And if that cinnamon sprinkled on top, girls, if they don't have that, we drive off thinking we're persecuted. They had those other 42 ingredients, but that 1 half sprinkle of cinnamon did not make it on there, and we are offended. Offended, why? Because we're living in Babylon, and it's all about me. That's why. Oh, girls. Girls, do you see this? Do you see this? Don't you remember the time where if you went somewhere, you asked for coffee and the server even chose how much cream and sugar you got in it? I hate to tell you, those were happier times. They were, because just that order reminded us it's not about you and it's not about me. You want coffee? I might bring you some coffee, and I might even put a little creamer in there. And if not, you're gonna drink it black. That happened like 20 years ago. It really did. The younger you are, you don't even remember this hard life I'm talking about. But again, I'm saying all this and I'm being funny but it's true. It's true. And so all of this, what I'm talking about, is offered to these young boys, and they say no. We are not going to defy ourselves. And I'm not saying that Starbucks is like, if that's your order, if I heard you order that, it's okay. Just don't drive off mad if they don't have one of them, okay? So God gives them favor, and they are promoted. Of course they are. Because that's what God does. And Daniel goes on to interpret a dream in chapter 2. And Babylon was all about pride. All about pride. And you know, Daniel even resisted that because they called for all the wise men. They wanted, he wanted his dream interpreted. In fact, he was going to kill everybody if it didn't happen. King Nebuchadnezzar, he was a little dramatic, I'm just going to tell you. Like in every chapter, he's like wanting to rip somebody limb from limb, is what he says. But Daniel prays, and God gives him not only the dream, but the interpretation of the dream. And I love this in chapter 227. And again, this is a young man. And this is his moment. He's in front of this king in this me culture. And the king asks him, can you interpret my dream? And you know what Daniel says? You know what? No one can interpret your dream. Not the magicians, the enchanters, nobody. But there is a God in heaven. That's his answer. Why? Because he was bringing glory, because that's what he'd been taught. By the way, when we get to heaven, I want to go find Daniel's parents. Somebody did a good job, because it was in him, and he remained true to who he was when he was given every opportunity to be somebody very, very different, and his parents wouldn't have known. And a lot of these young people, that's exactly what they did, but he did not say, oh yeah, I am a dream interpreter. I got you, King Nebuchadnezzar. No, he said, there's a God in heaven, and he knows what you dreamed, and he is giving me the interpretation. Doesn't this make you love this young man? Young man. In chapter 3, we see another value of Babylon, which is image. You know the story, Nebuchadnezzar, he builds a golden image that everybody has to bow to. Okay, image. Like, I'm sure none of us have, we've not bowed down and worshiped an image. I mean, surely you haven't. But image, right? When I was asking the Lord and I went and I'm like, what does even image? What's the definition? It's like a likeness, something you present. And I thought, oh boy. Yeah, I'm thinking about like all our social media pages. Image. We may not want bows, but we love likes. I know. I love y'all. I promise. I wanted to speak on something different. I promise. The Lord gave this to me and he wore me out about it first. He did. But I just want to tell y'all that if you have 100 pictures posted on your Instagram and 99 of you are in the same spot with the same hair, with the same face, in the same gym, standing in front of the same bathroom mirror, like maybe just go ahead and like switch it up a little bit. Like just maybe surprise us and like maybe put a Bible verse. I don't know. Y'all know what I'm talking about. How different can you look in that same bathroom mirror day after day after day? I know, me too. So he builds this golden image because Babylon is about image, and we know that the 3 Hebrew children will not bow to it. Okay, these are some amazing young men, and we know that they are Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and they say, no, we're not going to do that. I want you to picture with me the peer pressure of that. Okay, this isn't just us not laughing at a joke we shouldn't laugh at in our workplace. No, this is a culture that music is played and everyone is expected to bow. And the repercussion of not doing that is death. And 3 young boys just stand there, who've been taken, who don't have church, who don't have family. They're in an unfamiliar place and they just choose to stand there. I cannot wait to meet these young men. Did you hear about, very quickly, that I saw it, you can look it up online, YouTube. As far as I know, this is a new thing, because again, that friendly captivity eventually becomes unfriendly to us. It becomes unfriendly. And see, this is where that line of demarcation is going to come in, because the church and the world have coincided kind of beautifully for a while, because we like all the image and we like our orders and we like that it's all about us and we love Jesus and we have kind of gotten along, but it's coming to an end. It's coming to an end, and it's coming to an end fast. And when it does, you and I have a choice to make. We're going to have a choice to make. But there was this young boy, he looked probably 17, 18 years old, at the Mall of America, was not saying anything, shopping. And the security guards come and find him and tell him, we've been told your shirt offends our shoppers. His shirt said, Jesus saves. He had not said anything. He was not preaching. He was not witnessing. And they told him that he either had to take that shirt off or leave the mall. You can look it up. So this culture is becoming more unfriendly to us, and we are going to have a decision to make. So we're going to go ahead. You know what, PK? I'm going to need to do a post-game video. If y'all are in Caneo, you know what happens, that Dr. Karen will give a post-game video when she doesn't have enough time to say all she needs to say in class. So I'm going to post a post-game video later for everything I don't have time to say right now. And it's my fault because I wrote way too much down. In fact, on the way up here, my son was like, Mom, what are you doing? how many pages of notes is that? I'm just going to talk fast. It's going to be fine. So in Daniel 6, he is getting older and older. He's receiving dreams and visions. And he is raised and he is promoted. And there's a group of people who they are jealous of him, and they decide we're going to have to plot against him to bring him down. But they say, you know what? After all these years, again, we're going from teenage to 80, and you can go study that he's denying himself over and over and over, because we're going to learn you die little by little. Little by little, you die. And so they come to him and they know the only way we're going to be able to get him on anything is if we write something that has to do with his God, because that's the only place that he will not compromise. That's the only place. And so they convince King Darius, who liked Daniel, by the way, to write a decree that if you call out to the name of your God or any other God and not Darius's name, that you will be thrown into a pit of lions. So the rule is you can only praise the name of the king, the Babylonian king, for 30 days. And I'm just going to tell you, a lot of us would have been like, well, it's only 30 days. When Daniel heard this, I love him. The first thing he does, you know what he does? He goes to his prayer closet. Like, oh my goodness, we can't pray. I better go pray. Like, I know who has the answer. God has the answer. So he goes and prays, and of course, they count on it. And by the way, just very quickly, this is why habits are good. Good habits are good, because in conflict, we typically go back to what we were already doing. Wherever we were finding our satisfaction and comfort is what we'll go to in time of conflict. And his place was prayer. So he went right back to that place. So they tell him, yep, we are going to have to throw you into the lion's den. The king regretted it. In fact, he did not sleep. They threw him in. And by the way, he was in there all night long. All night long. We know that he was unharmed, and the king rushes to go check on him that next morning. And listen again to his answer. And this is, he can say this because this is after a lifelong decisions of denying himself. My God sent his angels to shut the lion's mouth because I was found blameless before you. Do you think holy living matters? Oh, it does. And I hope that your theology will allow that he was not rescued from the lion's den. He was rescued in the lion's den. Okay, so some of you are in the lion's den and you think God failed you, and he did not. He might just rescue you in instead of from. And isn't that so much better of a story to read? That Daniel never saw a lion. No, he slept with them all night long. And they did not touch him. And he says it was because he was found blameless in God's sight that he did this. So Daniel, after all he's been through, the trauma, he's taken away, he's put in an unfamiliar territory, he's lied on, he's thrown into the pit, and he is still just deciding to give all. And when I asked the Lord, when did he get to that point? Am I to that point that, Amy, your very life is going to be required of you? I was honestly asking the Lord, when did he decide that? And I heard the Lord. I was in Daniel 6. He said, the answer is not in Daniel 6. The answer is in Daniel 1. Daniel 1:8, when it says, but Daniel resolved. What did he resolve that day? He resolved about the meat, because let me tell you, long before you can give your life to the lions, you deny yourself the king's delicacies. Long before you give your very life and you die to your life, you die to your offense. Long before you give your very life, you give up and die to your preferences. long before. So he didn't just wake up and was able to say, yes, I can be thrown into the lion's den. There was a progression of dying little by little by little, because he knows, and what I want y'all to know is that the culture is lying to us and tell us to fight for ourselves, make it about you. It will make you happy. It's not. The way to the joy and the freedom that you're after is actually through death. It is. Dying little by little. And the Lord told me to look at the first three, I didn't even know what it said. The first three words of Daniel 1:8, and combine them with the first three words of Daniel 1:9. And when I looked at it, it says, but Daniel resolved and God gave. The same is true in our lives. My challenge to you is to think about where in my life currently, I've asked this of the Lord, do I look more like a daughter of Babylon than the bride of Christ? Because he says he is coming back for a spotless bride. It doesn't just say he's going to come back and make her spotless. It says he's coming back for her already spotless. And so my assignment today is that if this was your wedding day, in the physical, and I saw you about to walk down the aisle, or you saw me, and right back here on my beautiful white dress was a spot, and you could help me clean it up and get it off, wouldn't you want me to tell you? I would want to know. I would not want to make my way down the aisle with that train behind me and have a spot on it, and you know, and didn't tell me. And I felt that that was my assignment, for us to examine ourselves and ask the Lord, where do I need to be purified? Where have I bought into the lie of Babylon? Where do I need to give something up for you? A year ago, maybe more, I can't remember, God asked me, and I'm just being honest, for my favorite television show. And it broke my heart, because I only watched one thing on TV, and it wasn't even bad. I hate cursing. I hate inappropriate stuff. I'm just saying, I do. I hate it. It wasn't even bad, but I could just tell God asked me for it. But you see, long before I'll be willing to get thrown into the lion's den, I have to be willing to lay down my favorite TV show. Because we die little by little. Little by little. And my challenge is for you to ask the Lord, when you get in the waters tonight, what can you leave in there? Where have you adopted this mindset? Because I'm telling you, the line of demarcation has been drawn. Our culture is getting more unfriendly. And I'll tell you, I think it was Pastor Todd who said there's two churches rising. Well, I'll tell you, yeah, it is. And one of them is the ones who are going to remain in Babylon. Because when the Jews were released to go back home, some of them stayed in Babylon. That had become familiar. It had become comfortable. And as that line is being drawn, we are going to have to choose. Am I going to stay over here and make it all about me? And the culture will applaud? Or am I going to get over here and am I going to deny myself? Because see, this isn't just arbitrary. We have a bridegroom coming. He is coming for a spotless bride. And when that music, remember, I told you the music was played and the people had to bow down to that image. In our culture, when that music's played, it will be played. It may be the church is irrelevant and needs to close again. That musical play. The musical play that you can't wear a Jesus Save shirt in the mall. I want to have died so well before that I will stand up and say, I don't live in that kingdom. I'm here, I'm in Babylon, but that's not the kingdom where I find my identity, where I find my values. I want to be like those 3 Hebrew children. I want to be like Daniel, and I want to be that when I make that stand, that I can turn around and see some of your faces. Because right now, ladies, we are in, right now, this weekend, we're in Daniel 1:8. We've been made aware we are in Babylon. You may not have chosen to be there. I may not have wanted it to be like this. We are there. And this weekend, we are either going to resolve or we're not going to resolve. And there would have been no Daniel 6 had there been no Daniel 1. There would have been no wonderful story about him living through the lion's den had he first not said no to the king's table. What delicacy of the Babylonian king are you nibbling on? There's an answer. I know what it is in my life. I know what God has asked me to do. I have given it to him, because you see, when you get in the water tonight, a lot of you are coming wanting to be filled with something. There's nothing wrong with that. But what he told me is, if you want to be filled, you're going to have to make space. And how you make space is you pour something. If I have a cup full of water and I want my first cup of coffee for the day, I have to pour the water out to make space for the coffee to go in. And God has something. It's just like Daniel 1:8 and 1:9. If we will resolve, God will give. It's a beautiful transaction. And I'm telling you, the last thing, Daniel's small resolve that started with just saying, I'm not going to eat meat, I'm only going to eat veggies, ended up with a king in chapter 6 signing a decree about Daniel's God and that all needed to worship him. I would love to see what God would do with 1,500 women who get up and say, I resolve no more. I will not nibble at the king's table. I will live for one kingdom, and that is the kingdom of God, because I'm telling you, Jesus is coming. He's coming for a bride. I'm going to read this quote, and then I'll be finished. At the end of this age, we have been called to fight the biggest battle between light and darkness the world has ever known. In fact, we are already in this battle. When we get to our eternal reward and get to meet the great saints of old that we have so looked forward to meeting, we will be surprised at how many of them have longed to meet us, who have served at the end of the age and were able to fight in the last great battle. To live and remain faithful in these times is one of the greatest of all honors. That is why many who are last will be first, and why Jesus saved the best wine for last. Everyone stand. I want you this afternoon, ask the Lord to show you, what is the delicacy that I'm nibbling on? Where's the place that I make it all about me, and I don't leave room for you. And he will show you, not in condemnation, but as an invitation to be a spotless bride that he so looks forward to coming and wedding. Will you be part of that with me? That if your child is in the Mall of America with a shirt and you're nowhere to be found, I want to go stand with your kid. I want to know that if one of my children are being ridiculed and about to be thrown out of the mall for something that they're wearing, that they can say, you know what, Mom, I was not alone. There was a group of women who were at the ladies' conference who decided to be resolved, and they stood with me. Hallelujah. Who will join me in this? Who will join me? God bless you, Pastor Karen.
Wow.